Hey guys, it's Brian. We're back here at the Frostbite JL, and today we're going to be swapping out some fenders. What we got is some Rubicon takeoff fenders with the LED DRL, so we're going to be swapping those out for these sport ones. We've got this other Jeep right next to it. Let's go ahead and compare the size difference. Alright guys, so these Jeeps have very similar lifts, and we both have 37s that are pretty close to almost exactly the same size. When you come in here and look, you got about 44.5 there. Now we'll look at the sport, and we're at 41.5. So that's actually 3-inch difference between the two. So we're going to gain a lot of inner fender well clearance for these larger 37s. So let's go ahead and pull this in the garage and we'll get these swapped out. Alright guys, so we're going to start with removing the front. This is pretty easy. We got a little 5/16 for these two small bolts in here, and that's going to be a 10mm for the rest. So go ahead and we'll take a look here. We'll just zip these out and then we should be able to rip this off. So you want to come up in here. These are going to be those little ones. And then you got 10mm ones. You got one right here, one there, one here, and one here as well. And then this should pull free from the side. So let's go ahead and get those out. Harness here. Alright, easy as that. So like you saw, it's pretty easy to pull off. You don't want to be afraid, you just want to get it from the front, rip it all the way back, and you do save some of these clips. I did go ahead and buy some more, so we do have plenty. But yeah, don't be afraid to rip it off. They just pop right off. And then you can see down here, we did retain a lot of them. Some of them did break, but you could reuse these if you wanted to. And then don't forget to unplug your harness. All right, let's go ahead and get the Rubicon ones on. All right guys, so here we got the sport fender compared to the Rubicon fender. So one thing you notice, we did have to unhook this factory plug for the wiring harness that runs all the way up to the light. So the harness on the Rubicon one is different. I purchased mine, come to find out they were cut. So they're cut right here. So what I did is I went and got the Molex connector they actually use on the factory one, and we put in all the wires that we need. And what we're going to do is we're going to measure our length and just make a new harness here. So everything should function as factory. So let's go ahead and we'll measure that one, and then we'll cut this one to length. All right. Other one's cut right about there. So it looks like about 24 inches. So we'll need to cut down my harness to 24 inches. We're going to go ahead and solder them off the vehicle so it's easier, and then we'll get those thrown on. Alright guys, so after you pull your fender off, you're going to have some clips left over. So you want to go ahead and get a plastic removal tool, and you'll go ahead and just pry those all out. We do have new clips, so we'll go ahead and replace them with those. So we'll go ahead and do that. So guys, chances are you are going to break all these, even if they didn't break on initial removal. That one actually stayed intact. But what I did is I went out ahead and ordered the Mopar replacement ones. I got them from justforjeeps.com, and they actually had them for the best price. So I went ahead and ordered about 50 of those to replace all of them, front and rear, just in case we needed them. Alright, we'll clean that up and we'll wire up our harness and we'll get the new one on. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and connect my harness to the factory harness. So we went ahead and stripped the wires back. We cut this to length. I'm going to be using these self-soldering heat shrinks. So what we did the negative already. We had to do 2 into 1 on this one. It was snug, but we got it to fit. and then it shrink wraps, and that kind of solders, heats up the solder and fuses those together. So we're going to go ahead and do that on the last 5 of these, and then we'll show you what that looks like. So if you guys take a look, I went ahead and melted the solder there, and then it melted these little waterproof bands here too. So that should make a nice waterproof connection. All right, let's do the rest. And you can see solder went ahead and melted, and that'll fuse those guys together permanently so you get a nice good connection. So we're all done with these. I'm gonna wrap them up with tape and we'll throw this fender on. Got our harness all wrapped here. Those are all soldered. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna replace the zip ties that go along here. There's gonna be 3 there and then 1 here. This one broke, so we're gonna pop that out and re-zip tie it. So then you'll have your harness kind of hanging like this in the factory position, and it should just plug right in. We went ahead and replaced all the clips, so we'll go ahead and pop that on here in just a second. All right, so now that we got that all zip tied in there, we got our new replacement harness. If you guys need this, I'll go ahead and put links down below, and I'll show some B-roll of what I've actually used and the part numbers. It's pretty easy. You just have to plug all those Molex connectors in there, and then I put some liquid electrician's tape on there to seal them up real good. So let's go ahead and we'll get this new Rubicon Fender on here. So that should pop just like that, and then you pop the red tab. There we go. And we got a nice factory style connection there. All right. Alright, that looks pretty nice. Alright, so let's go ahead and we'll test them out and see if they work. Well, yes they do. The turn signal works at least, which is good. Let's see what the parking lights look like. Alright, look at that. So this is just on the parking light sensor. So normally if you look on the halogen, it's just 1 amber bulb. Over here on the Rubicon one with the LED, you get the white DRL style light. So I do have the JScan app. We'll go ahead and let the computer know that we have the LEDs now and the DRL function, so that'll be nice. And then if you look, this is going to be the turn signal now, this lower piece here. So these do look pretty nice on here. I do really like the white light, and then we have gained a ton of clearance. Let's go ahead and take a look. Yeah, now we're right about 44 now, and we were at 31.5 before. So that's pretty great. I'm glad. That gives us an extra 2.5 inches. These are also, if you're doing this on a sport, they're also a hair wider because the Rubicon axles are wider. So you are going to get a bit more tire coverage. That's not going to matter too much because I do have a Rubicon axle we're throwing in the front here soon. So it should have about the same amount of poke. But for the rear, it'll have more coverage. So let's go ahead and we'll get this buttoned up and then we'll jump on the rear. Alright guys, so now that we're done with that front one, we're going to go ahead and do the rear. The rear is pretty simple. It's just a bunch of push pins. So if you come in here and look, we're going to have a series of push pins along the fender liner here, down below, and then also a couple up in here. So I'm going to go ahead and use the plastic tool and we'll pop those out and we'll rip this fender off. Alright guys, we went ahead and pulled all those push pins out. Most of them did break, so they are little Christmas tree connectors. These little guys. So you want to go ahead and pick up some new ones. Alright, so now that all those are pulled out, this should just pull right off like the front. Alright, there you go. Alright, so now we got our new Rubicon rear fender here. We went ahead and put all our plastic clips on. We transferred some of the isolators as well too. We got her all cleaned up. We'll go ahead and pop her in. Alright, and there you go. It does have quite a bit more clearance. We'll go ahead and measure the other side to compare. One thing to note, if you do have the 3-piece sport bumper, the plastic one, this third piece is not going to line up quite well. I might go ahead and pull that off and chop it or get a new rear bumper altogether. But for now, we're going to leave it alone. It is not as wide and it is set in a little. But let's go ahead and we'll measure how much we got on this and then we'll take a look at the other side. All right, so we didn't measure it beforehand, but we'll go ahead and measure the other side. It does look like we gained a little bit of clearance here, but what we did gain, if you come take a look, we gained about an inch of width. So if you kind of look down the side, on this side, where before, if you look at the other side, it sticks out quite a bit. So like I was saying, this isn't going to line up. We'll be replacing that later or going to just an aftermarket bumper altogether. But you do get a little more clearance. You do get a little bit more height. We'll measure it on the other side. But the rears are super easy. You just got to pull those Christmas tree pins and it rips right off. So let's go ahead and we'll do the driver's side and we'll be all set. All right guys, we got a little excited and pulled that other one off before. We went ahead and measured it, but this one's going to be about 44 1/8. So that's right around a 1/2 inch to an inch of extra clearance. But what you really gain with this is the inch more of width. Kind of catch more of those rocks and stuff, and it is set a little farther back. So once we get rid of this, you'll have more room for articulation. Plus the inner fender well is carved out a little bit more. So a lot of room to flex. This is where I rubbed before with the previous setup, was in the rear. So this should help a lot. All right guys, we'll go ahead and we'll throw the front on, then we'll show you the end product. All right guys, so that's gonna do it for the install of the Rubicon Highline fenders. These ones did have the LED DRLs. As you can see, they work great. They do look nice and they give us a couple inches of clearance. So those will be great for the 37s. All right guys, go ahead and like and subscribe and follow along. We got more cool videos coming. Thanks guys.